Hey, grade 12, it's Tuesday, September 22nd, and welcome to fall. It's fall 2020 now. So we are going to do the recap for Chapter 7 and Chapter 8 of Animal Farm, and then we only have 2 chapters left to go until we're done the novel, and then we'll watch the movie version. There's a few differences between the movie and the novel, which is normal. At least it gives you a visual idea of what life is like on Animal Farm. And we had some due dates come and go. So on Monday it was shooting an elephant, and that was the essay with the 3 questions, and that should have been submitted to Google Classroom or emailed to me, or a picture taken of it. If you have not been able to do that, then unfortunately there's nothing I can do about that because the date has passed. But if there were some issues that popped up, please let me know. Today is Walter Mitty, and then that one is passed, and I posted on Google Classroom all the assignments that we've done to date and what is coming up. So you have that reminder, as it was stated by a few of you that you appreciate those updates. Then we have the research paper is due on September 30th. Then the COLA ad or commercials, whichever one you're doing, and the questions on October 2nd. And October 5th is The Greatest Showman, and with the lyrics, and then the Animal Farm novel study and summaries, October 9th, just before Thanksgiving. Okay. And when we get to next week, we will be pretty much halfway through our quint, and only about 2.5 weeks until we are done. So there you go. It's going pretty quick. All right, so we're going to get into our Animal Farm, and press pause where you need to press pause to refresh your memory. And if you need more time to spend on the summary notes, then please do that. And let's go to that. There we go. Okay, so Chapter 7. So I've entitled it as Propaganda versus Perseverance, Job Action, Dissension, and Blame, Banning of Traditions. So a lot, just in the title alone, you already know what the chapter is going to be about. So we have our maxims, and that's a form of propaganda. They're used to get people pumped up, or you know, that nationalism approach. And so Boxer says, "I will work harder." That keeps him going. And of course, if Boxer's going hard, then with his duties, then the rest of the animals will follow suit, because his strength, it will be their strength. And Napoleon comes up with his own as well. We'll see that in the next chapter. And we'll also see some changes to the 7 commandments. So the animals are forgetting what the original commandments were. And that, again, that comes to education and reinforcements and stuff like that. It's if you don't keep yourself apprised of what's going on, then changes are made, and you're like, whoa, wasn't it this way before? I can't remember. And why is that? Because you weren't up to date on the latest of events and affairs of state, or what our politicians are doing, or those kind of things. So you need to be up to speed on that, because those changes can be made in a moment's notice. And then when it's changed, you're like, what happened? Okay. When you turn 18, you get to vote, and it's very important because that's your voice, right? So get out there and vote when you turn 18. Participate in that democratic process, that freedom, okay, to choose who will best lead you as a citizen, as a province, as a country, and things like that. And stay up to date on the different trends and policies and things like that, because like I said, they can change anytime. and especially if they change without debate. That's scary. Okay. Food shortages developed, and the animals conceal their dilemma from the humans by making them think all is well. Napoleon fills 3/4 of the barrel with sand and then fills the rest up with corn. And a whimper comes by, sees that it looks full. That's perception versus reality, right? And then he goes and tells everybody, yeah, no, everything's fine on an animal farm. They're not starving. They have full barrels. Okay. Squealer announced that they will pay for the grain with the eggs, and of course the hens do not appreciate that, and so they rebel. And so Napoleon has them started into submission, and tragically 9 hens die. We have more scapegoating, with Snowball being blamed once again for the hardships being experienced on Animal Farm. We already know what the reasons for the hardships are, but the animals don't. And they're taking Squealer's representation or presentation or version of events as the word. And when in fact, if they would investigate more, and we were talking about that today, you know, like there's one animal on the farm that could speak up and tell the animals, this is not, you know, what's happening is not the truth. It's not the reality. Okay. You're not getting all the information, and that's Benjamin. He could open his mouth and say something, but he doesn't. Okay, and he remains passive throughout this whole novel. What will it take for Benjamin to finally speak up? We're going to have to see what happens in the next couple chapters. So we have continued fear and dissent among the ranks. Squealer states that the documents, they have documents, like, you know, it's like, I've got documents here. Okay, I've got documents here. Everything's here. Okay, but if you can read them, you're welcome to do so, right? Well, none of them can read. Half of them can only spell out A, B, C, D. And Squealer knows that. So it's basically a bluff. Okay? And so if you want to read it, go ahead. But nobody's going to read it. They say, well, if you say it's true, it's true. Napoleon's always right. We have another maxim, death to humanity, on page 54. And then we hear a little more about the scapegoating, that Snowball has spies. And so then we have animals that are executed for having any connection with Snowball. And some step up and say that they had relations with Snowball, or they worked with Snowball to create all these problems. And so we have mass executions, and that historically we've had many examples of that atrocity taking place in our world. And again, that creates fear. So through these actions, the animals are scared. They're afraid. So it's easier just to follow, right? After the bloody purge, as we call it, the animals acknowledge that their world has been turned upside down. It's no longer what it was before. Okay, they do know that, but they can't articulate or put into a comprehensive understanding of how that has changed. They just know it's changed. Boxer states it's all their fault. Well, that's what fear does. When you're fearful of something, you start blaming yourself for things. And that could be a struggle for anyone, including, you know, like, we've all been through some form of fear, and we always look at situations, you know, oh, maybe it was my fault, and maybe I should have done this or done that, or you know, things like that. Clover sees the world of an ideal society. It's now replaced with fear and suspicion. Does that sound familiar, especially historically? And I have some examples on the screen there. We get the mournful version of Beasts of England. It's like singing a song that what was once a celebration is now more of a funeral march, sort of. And Squealer hears it, and he says, well, nobody's allowed to sing Beast of England anymore because that was the song of the rebellion, and we're going to have a new one. Okay, so let's see what happens next. So in chapter 8, Battle of the Windmill and Fall of Boxer, the animals begin to question executions, but there's an amendment to one of the commandments. Okay, no animal shall kill another without cause. That's brand new. But to the animals, as far as they're concerned, it's been there from day one. Okay, Benjamin, he knows that that's not the case, but and Muriel, for one of the animals that can actually read, you would think she would recall the original version of the commandments, but she doubts herself. Even though she can read it, she doubts herself too, and she says, well, maybe I forgot about it. Maybe it's been there from day one. Okay, so she leans more on the, yeah, I probably forgot. Okay, Napoleon withdraws himself from the animals and becomes almost a deified leader, and we do see that quite often with leaders who have they get to a certain level and then they stand back and let everybody do their thing, and then they only come out when they need to come out, and then you see pictures of them everywhere and stuff like that. We have another maxim, death to Frederick, and then Napoleon plays both sides and he says death to Pilkington, which doesn't lead to a good result in the Battle of the Windmill. The windmill is destroyed by Frederick, and Boxer's injured, so that's going to affect him later on. And more changes are made to the commandments. We have no animal shall drink alcohol to excess. They found that whiskey. So they partied it up after making the animals think they had won the Battle of the Windmill. I think it would be a draw more than anything. But Napoleon and Squealer were able to spin it, so the animals figured they won the battle. But they lost the windmill. It's gone. Okay, it's blown up. And then we have the first two amendments that were changed, or amendments to the commandments. No animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets, and no animal shall kill any other animal without cause. Okay, so take note of those changes. And that leads us to chapter 9. Okay, so if you have any questions about chapter 7 and 8, please let me know. And be sure you're making those connections with other events that have occurred in our history. As history tends to repeat itself. It's just different players, different events that led to the repeat of this history. The leaders feel that they can probably do things better than the original version of the historical events, and then we find out that's not the case. But if we learn from our mistakes, we wouldn't be repeating them. Okay, so that's something to consider as well. All right, so take note of the due dates coming up, and you should be already starting your projects and get that done. Don't leave it till October 9th. Get it done as soon as possible, please. Okay, so stay ahead of the game so that you're not stretching things out and piling your plate up with all these assignments that are coming up. Okay, aside from that, have a good day. Take care. Be safe.